Hello again.
Hi everybody. I'm Hillary from Mission, West Virginia, and I want to thank you guys for joining us today. Unfortunately, we had to cancel the Think conference this year, but I was super excited that Diana Graber was able to join us for a webinar presentation in lieu of our conference presentations that she was going to come in to make. She is the founder and creator of cyberwise.org and cybercivics.com. Did I get those correct? I use them interchangeably, and they are two separate and distinct things. But so I'm really excited to have you with us today, even by webinar. But it's now 1:01. I guess we could allow a couple of more minutes for some more attendees to join on if you'd
Okay,
like. But if you'd like to give a little background,
sure. Well, first of all, Hillary, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be able to do this online. And I was telling Hillary before we started how sorry I was not to be able to visit West Virginia in the flesh because it's my favorite state to visit. You guys are so friendly. So I feel lucky to be able to do this online. So we have to be grateful for technology for things like this. So yeah. And I'm going to actually do my introduction within the presentation.
okay.
So you just let me know when you think it's safe to start, but we can banter for a few minutes if you like.
Okay. All right, we'll give it just a couple of more minutes. It looks like we have 36 on, and there's about 75 who registered today. So,
Awesome. You know what? I put a
minutes.
message in the chat box that I'm going to try to take questions as I go as best I can. I'm going to try. I've got two screens going here, so hopefully I'll be able to see the chat box. I'll put that message in there. Is that all right? That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay, good. Might as well.
Yes, I'll try to keep track of those questions as well.
That's terrific. Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and change to the other screen.
Okay.
Make sure that at least works.
I'm going to mute myself out. So thank you again for joining us, everybody. And Diana, we appreciate you helping us.
How does that look? Is that working?
Yeah.
Good. So you just let me know when you think it's safe to go.
How about we give it one more minute and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Let me turn on my chat. So Hillary, you let me know when you think you'd like me to get started. You can still hear me.
I can, and I think we are probably ready to go.
All right, I'll do a slow roll in case anyone joins late. How's that?
Okay. That's perfect. Thank you so much.
All right, well, thank you guys. Like I was saying earlier, it's such a pleasure to be able to have technology so that we can at least do these things virtually. I'm going to talk to you today about digital citizenship during coronavirus. And that's kind of a funny title because digital citizenship is really important all the time, not just during this time. But I think there's a special emphasis on it right now because we know that kids are online much more now than they are during real life or normal life. And they're on an awful lot during normal life too. So this really puts a spotlight on this topic of digital citizenship. So to give you a little background, I'm from a couple different organizations. I'm going to talk to you today about our middle school digital citizenship and literacy program called Cybercivics, which you can learn about more at cybercivics.com. We also have a website just for parents. It's full of free information and research and all kinds of stuff that you can download. And that's available at cyberwise.org. And we also have a newsletter that we send out every couple of weeks with really great information. And then I wrote a book called Raising Humans in a Digital World. A lot of what I'm going to talk about today is in the book. Obviously, it goes into greater depth. But one of the things I really like about the book is that at the end of each chapter, I include family activities that you can do together at home with your children in order to build the skills that we're going to talk about today. So, the next one. So just as a little background, my journey actually started at a school called Journey School. It's where my own children went to school, K through 8. And about 10 years ago, when one of my daughters was in middle school, the school experienced its first cyberbullying incident. And 10 years ago, there was no Instagram or Snapchat. It was Facebook, and kids were using Facebook. And the cyberbullying incident that happened is so minor, especially by today's standards. But basically, the girls were posting pictures that hurt each other's feelings on Facebook. And this problem found its way into the administrator's office, and he did not know what to do. First of all, he didn't even know what Facebook was. No idea what cyberbullying was, and really no idea how to respond to the situation. And so he looked for help. And I was a parent at the school, but I also had just completed a master's program in something called media psychology and social change, where I really studied a lot about digital literacy. And I had just had a paper published in the Journal of Media Literacy Education about media literacy and how to teach it to children. And so I was kind of excited when this problem happened at the school, and asked our principal, Mr. Faltis, if I could start teaching digital citizenship lessons to the students. And he said, please start tomorrow. And so we started this journey of putting together a curriculum with the help of other academics and experts. And today, Cybercivics is available online for schools all over the world to use. We have schools, I think we're now in 44 US states and 7 other countries. But basically, it's a 3-year curriculum that goes through 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Some schools start it as early as 5th grade, maybe even 4th. But we start the whole thing with a whole year on digital citizenship because it's such an important topic. So what I'm going to show you today is how we do it with kids. If you're here on the webinar today, we're going to send you follow-up resources. So I'm going to actually send you some of these lessons so you can try them with your own students or children. So you'll see what I mean as we go through. So I also wanted to mention, I'm going to do my best to keep an eye on the chat box. If you have questions as I go, please put them in there and I'll try to address them as we move through the webinar. All right, so a little bit about what I'm going to talk to you about today, cybercivics in specific. The way we address digital citizenship is in the developmentally appropriate way. We spend a lot of time researching this. It sequences lessons in a way where they really meet the children where they are developmentally. A lot happens with kids in those middle school years, and as I'm going to show you, we really try to take advantage of that, especially as they enter 5th and 6th grade and their critical thinking skills just start happening. We really try to take advantage of that time. The thing that I love about the curriculum, it can be taught without computers. You don't need to have technology in front of you to teach about technology. It's about neurology, not technology. And our lessons are proactive. We want to empower young people with the skills to use technology safely and wisely. And it's definitely not fear-based. You can't go in there and scare kids about their digital world. They're way too excited about it. So if we go in there with our own bias, our own fears, that's going to not really go over well with kids because, again, they're excited about connecting with their peers. And I think where this program is a little different is we put a really heavy emphasis on ethics. We want kids to be good, ethical digital citizens. We got a little blurb about that I think really describes our program well. An intentional deep dive that teaches emotional intelligence as much as it does digital citizenship. And I think that's a really fantastic way to describe the program. This one I love too, this headline I had to share with you because I think it describes it better than we probably could, but tech with a human touch. Cybercivics teaches middle schoolers to think critically and ethically about the digital world. So I'm really excited to show you how we do this, and please, by all means, ask questions as we go and use these lessons with your own children. All right. Before we start, a lot of questions that I get from parents particularly, and sometimes teachers, is why do we wait till middle school to teach these lessons? And we have a really specific reason for that. When kids hit that 11 to 14 year age range, research shows that's when their interest in everything digital really peaks. So we're hitting in a time when they're very excited about technology anyway, so they're very into these lessons. Number two, and I mentioned this earlier, it really takes about 12 years of life for kids to develop the capacity to do ethical thinking. That's because ethical thinking needs to have a foundation of abstract thinking first, and kids can't think abstractly until about 12 or 13 years of age, and then they're able to do ethical thinking. And when you think about it, everything that happens online just about requires ethical thinking. Should I post a picture of someone that's going to make them look fat? Or do I download music that I haven't paid for? All of those are ethical questions. And it's really hard for a child underneath the age of 12 or 13 to think through the consequences of their actions if they're unethical. So you'll see here that we really try to get kids to use that skill well in order to be a good critical thinker on the internet. Why now? This is the big question. We know kids are online now more than they've ever been. They have to be for school and to connect with their peers. There was a study done by Parents Together Foundation. Nearly half of respondents say kids are spending 6 hours a day watching screens, and that's a 500% increase. And I know that 6 hours a day doesn't sound like a lot. That was super young kids that this research study was done with. So as the kids get older, the screen time is even higher because of the time they need to spend with schoolwork. But the point is, parents are worried because kids are spending so much time online. So the answer to that is really to give them skills to use their screens safely and wisely. And that's what digital citizenship does. One and done, I had to throw this in because a lot of times schools will call us and say, hey, can you give our kids a 1-hour lecture on online safety? And it's like, we say no, because you can't teach online safety in an hour. And you're going to waste your kids' time. You're going to waste your money. You're going to waste a lot of energy bringing somebody out there to teach this in an hour, and it's not going to have lasting impact. And the reason for this is the digital world is a very complex place, and it takes a lot of energy and time to get kids to really understand the impact of these lessons. And I'm going to show you why in just a moment. Will the PowerPoint be available after this webinar? We're going to send everyone who signed up for the webinar a list of resources that you will find the stuff that I'm going to talk about in just a moment. All right. So digital literacy, the way we approach it, it's a journey. As I mentioned, this is stuff that can't be taught overnight. So the way our journey works is we start with a whole year of lessons on digital citizenship, which is the safe and responsible use of technology. And when I say a whole year, it's 1-hour lessons that are intended to be taught weekly. So some schools teach it all at the beginning of the year and get it over with. Some schools stretch it out through the year, but basically it's weekly lessons that should last a whole school year. And then we follow it up with information literacy, which is how to find, retrieve, analyze, and use online information. We want kids to use the internet as a great research tool. And then finally, media literacy for positive participation, which is usually using critical thinking skills to analyze media and be a positive media participant. This is so important right now because there's so much misinformation online, specifically regarding COVID. And we want kids to be able to be critical thinkers when they analyze this information, to be able to decipher the good, the bad, the true, the untrue. And that's what we do in level 3. But today, I'm going to talk to you specifically about level 1, which is digital citizenship. As I mentioned, the norms of safe and responsible technology use. There are 6 units in this level. Each unit has somewhere between, I think, 3 and 8 lessons that address each topic. So I'm going to start with the very first topic here. And for this part of my presentation, it really helps if you try to think like a 6th grader. These lessons will make a lot more sense to you if you think as a 6th grader. So if you teach 6th graders or have a 6th grader, this should be super easy for you. But basically where you are developmentally is you're really excited because maybe you're just about to get your first connected device and you want to try to use all this stuff and connect with your friends. And also you're starting to understand the consequences of your actions. So that's where you are. And our very first lesson is called Becoming a Detective. And I actually got this term and this lesson from a wonderful book called Digital Community and Digital Citizen by Jason Oler. He was a professor, or still is a professor at Fielding Graduate University, where I got my master's. And wonderful book, but he has a great little lesson in there that I have kind of adapted to teach the students in the classroom. And basically it teaches them how to look at technology like a detective would look at it. Take a step back and analyze it. And so for this very first lesson, we come into the classroom and we say to the kids, hey, when I say technology, what's the first thing that you think about? So just to see if you're awake out there, I'm going to ask you that question right now. When I say technology to a sixth grader, what do you think they say to me? So I want to see a couple of people maybe put something in the chat box as we go here. Anybody? Come on. I know someone's awake out there. Video games, exactly. That's the first thing. Video games, game players, Instagram, talking to my friends, TikTok. You guys are good at this. You know, cell phone. You're right. This is the stuff, exactly. Thank you for putting that up there. That's the stuff that sixth graders say. They think about today's technology, and they rarely think about any technology that was invented longer than they were alive, right? So the purpose of this lesson is to teach kids that technology has been around a long time, right? In fact, in ancient Greece, there was a really cool piece of technology. It was called the stylus. You see it here on the screen. And the stylus was really cool because for the first time, humankind could write down their thoughts and their stories and their memories. And they didn't have to keep it all up here. They could write it down so future generations could read what they were thinking or saying. So you would think this would be a really wonderful contraption, right? Well, it turned out this tool was not beloved by everybody. In fact, there was a great thinker at the time named Socrates, and he thought that the stylus was the worst invention ever because it would cause mankind to lose the ability to remember. And so it's a perfect example of technology introduced to society where it had mixed reviews, right? So this is kind of happens throughout history when a new tool is introduced to us. At first, we approach it with excitement, but also trepidation, and then we learn to adapt and live with that tool. But more importantly, nearly every tool introduced to us connects us together in some way and disconnects us in some way. And I'll show you a good example of that. So the eyeglasses, I have some on right now. Eyeglasses are another piece of technology that was introduced to society. And, you know, in some ways they're wonderful. They connect us to one another because I can see you, I can read, right? But they also disconnect us because when you take them away, before there were eyeglasses, let's say I was in a room and I couldn't see from here to the doorway, someone would have to help me to the doorway, or maybe someone would have to read to me. So that connection has sort of been lost with the invention of this technology or tool. So that's what we want the kids to think about. We want them to think about technology as tools, and we want them to think about how tools they have pluses and minuses, right? And sometimes they connect us and sometimes they disconnect us. So for this particular lesson, there's actually handouts in the curriculum. The kids get a different tool or technology introduced throughout history, and in their little detective groups of 3 to 4 students, they have to think of 3 ways this technology connected humans to one another and 3 ways the technology disconnected humans from one another. And I can tell you, having done this lesson for many, many years with 6th graders, they love it. They really start thinking and they come up with really interesting ideas and thoughts. I have my students keep a little book when they do cyber civics, and here's things that they wrote, which I thought were so cute. For the telephone, 3 ways to disconnect and connect. Connect, you can get quick pizza, good thinking, right? It lets you talk to other people and you have quick communication in case of emergency, great ideas. But it disconnects us because we don't walk to people's houses, we talk on the phones instead. We don't connect with other people, probably they meant physically, and we might get too attached to the phone, which is definitely how I was as a teenager. So that gives you an idea how we walk the kids through this critical thinking of these different lessons, starting very at the very beginning. We're like, what is a technology? This lesson actually is delivered, like all of them, in an easy to download PDF to the teacher, so they just read through it with all the steps on how to introduce the lesson. This is an example of a lesson that comes after this. And then part of the program that I love the best is we have these send home letters to parents with activities that align with every single lesson taught, because it's so important to get parents on board with this stuff. We cannot teach this stuff in a vacuum. It goes home and they do a lot of their interconnected with kids on their computers at home. So as you see here, it's a bunch of lessons for the parents. The lesson I just told you about the detectives, the homework that goes home is you or a grandparent, another family member will be interviewed by your child, who will ask what life was like before the cell phone was invented, help them understand how you survived with this seemingly indispensable tool. So that's really fun because the detectives come back with their interviews that they did with their parents and grandparents and say, oh my gosh, my parents used this thing called a payphone. It's funny because one of my students last week, they forgot what a payphone was called, and they said, what was that box that people used to walk into and it had red letters at the top and they could make phone calls? So that's the kind of stuff they learned by doing these interviews. All right, so the next lesson is actually super fun too. For this one, I asked kids, who's used a computer? Everyone's used a computer, right? And so I said, well, that's great. Tell me how it works. In fact, draw me a picture of the inside of a computer to show me how it works and label the parts. So this is the kind of stuff we get back. You know, kids really have no idea what makes a computer work. They use them every day. They have no idea. So that's what this lesson does. We actually give each group of detectives a different component to study. And this little group got the video card, and it's their job to describe the video card in their own words and teach it to the rest of the class. And the picture you see down below is one of our schools. I believe that's a school in Minnesota that brought in an expert to actually take a computer apart and show the kids what lives inside. So, you know, it's funny because like we think our kids are such digital natives, but they don't even understand the basic mechanics of how these things work. So that's where we start. All right, so as we move through cyber civics, we get deeper and deeper into the actual things that are important to them, what it means to be a member of a community, what is citizenship. And when you think about it today, our kids are community members of all kinds of communities, online and offline. And in the online world, what it means to be a citizen has not been well defined for our children. And that's why we see a lot of the problems that we see. So that's what this unit addresses. And I believe our little video is next. We have a bunch of videos in the program, so I'm going to share them with you today.
Citizens
Whoa, let me start that
of our communities, our states,
Sorry
countries.
about that. Okay, there we go.
We're all citizens of our communities, our states, countries, even the world. Today, we are even citizens of a bigger community. It's online, and its members include anyone who uses a connected device, like a computer, smartphone, iPad, or tablet. Hey, that makes almost everyone a digital citizen. Digital citizenship offers great opportunities. Just think of all the cool stuff you can do online. But it also requires big responsibilities. To be kind, fair, respectful, and truthful, for example. But who's online to make sure that we use the internet properly? Well, that's the thing. Sometimes there are no internet police or traffic signals to tell people how to act online. So it's up to us to act responsibly. After all, no one wants to hang out in a place that's not safe or fun to be in, right? So think about that next time you go online. Because how you act today will largely determine what digital citizenship will be tomorrow.
Okay, so someone asked a question, does the parent homework have to be returned? And that's really dependent on the teacher. You know, I myself still teach cyber civics at the school where it started. And, you know, I don't make it absolutely mandatory, but I do tell the children that it's a third of their grade. So that gives them the incentive to turn it in. But I have met teachers that teach it, that make it a mandatory thing and make the parents sign it. So it really depends on your community and your school, you know, how that's handled. So thank you for that question. All right, so in this unit, we obviously are teaching kids what it means to be a member of a community, and we describe to them what good citizenship is. It's pretty easy. Good citizenship is guided by honesty, compassion, respect, responsibility, and courage. And generally in the real world, it's pretty easy to know this because we know that there are certain rules and responsibilities in the real world. We stop at stoplights, right? We get a license before we drive a car. We follow the rules when we drive. All that stuff is pretty well defined in the real world, but not well defined in the offline world. So we start with the real world. In this example, the kids stay in their detective groups, and each group gets a different community that they belong to. Maybe it's a sports team. In this case, it's their classroom community. And they talk about and then write down what it means to be honest, compassionate, respectful, responsible, and courageous in that online community. And it's pretty easy for them because, again, they've been taught, like in the classroom, how you show respect, how you're honest. This is an example of kids who did the same thing for their soccer team. Whoopsie, sorry about that. What happened here? Yikes. Bear with me here, I'm having technical difficulties. Shoot, I'm gonna stop the share for just a second. Sorry about that. Hillary, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I don't know what happened. Are you seeing a split screen on your side?
No, all I see right now is video.
Do you see the soccer screen?
No.
Can you tell me what you're looking at?
I just see you
Oh, okay.
and well, Kelly
I
Thompson.
was showing that, and I apologize everybody, but for some reason my screen on the other side went split on me, and I don't know why.
I'm not seeing your shared screen. Oh,
Now,
now I am.
are you seeing
It's split?
it split?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm so sorry here, folks. I'm going to have to go back to, I don't know what happened. My computer went wacky on me. So I'm going to just bear with me here for a moment. And I was just laughing that everything was going so well today.
Everything's going perfect today.
Okay, I think I fixed it. I don't know what happened there. You guys got to read my emails, what happened. I wish you was, I hope some of you responded to my email as you were reading it, because I have an awful lot of it today. Okay, can you see my screen all right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so as I was saying earlier, this is an example of a group of detectives, and their community was their soccer team. So they had to think of ways that their soccer team would exhibit all of those ideas of being a good citizen. So pretty easy stuff, because again, we've taught our kids how to be good citizens in the real world, but we haven't really talked to them about that in the online world. So that's what this lesson does. Let's see. So the next one is, oh gosh, there we go. So then the next step is to teach them how to take these same skills and exhibit them in the online world. So we have the kids stay in their groups of detectives, and their job is to think about how you would show each of those things in different online communities. For example, how could you be honest on Snapchat? Well, one way to start is to be truthful about your age when you sign up for the app. That's a pretty easy thing to remember. And again, think about that, because if your children were offline in the real world and I came to your house and I asked them, how old are you? And they were 9, they would tell me 9, right? Because that's what you do in real life. But yet so many kids don't think twice about lying about their age online in order to use social media networks. So we want them to make that jump. Another example is, how could you show compassion on YouTube, for example? Well, post kind comments. We talk about this in class, you know, how much that means to somebody to see something kind rather than something cruel. How do you show respect on Instagram? Don't use disrespectful language. Responsibility in group texts. It's really simple. Don't text friends late at night. Courage on Fortnite. You can stand up to bullies. So again, there's some really easy ways to show kids how to take that next step and be a good citizen in the offline world. And then the final lesson, I think this may be the lesson that kids love best the whole year, but I let them pretend that they're going to make their own social media app. But their responsibility is to create an app that will help foster good community, kind citizenship, and they have to think of mechanisms they would build into the app in order to accomplish this. So this is one I love. This kid came up with this idea called My Art, and the way that he kept his community safe and kind is, I have to read it to you in case you guys can't see it. Keep your beret on. The color of your beret indicates your supportiveness, popularity, and how long you've been on the site. However, if you are unkind in either content or your art, or your comments or others' art, you can be reported, and if the evidence is there, your beret will become these. Scuffed beret, banned for 12 hours. Old beret, banned for 24 hours. Lost beret, last chance is blown forever, you're banned. So I just think that's so cute. This kid actually thought that through. And when you think about it, wow, how easy would it be for a social media network to actually do this, right? So anyway, I want the kids to think about, you know, they're going to be the future designers of the things they use, to think about ways they can keep their communities kind and safe. So someone here says, do you give grade for your digital citizenship classes? I do not give a grade, and find that with the older grades, 8th and 9th, this impacts their engagement. Oh, that's a really good comment. I actually do, and the way I do it is I explain to them at the beginning of the year that their grade is dependent on 3 factors. Their participation in class, completing their work in class, the books that you see, this kind of stuff, and homework, the homework that we talked about earlier. And so, and there's just one quiz, so that contributes a little bit to their grade. And you know, I find the kids they get excited about the class in 6th grade because they're just interested in the topic. In 7th and 8th, it's a little bit harder because it's actually like deeper work. We're talking about, you know, looking at critically and analyzing media. And so that's when the grade becomes more important. So thanks for that question. Okay, here we go. this is a very important unit, your digital reputation. Everything kids post online stays online forever, and it really impacts their future. We've seen a lot of examples of this. You guys might know the story of the kids who applied to Harvard a couple of years ago and were accepted. And then they started posting inappropriate things on a Facebook group that they thought was private, but nothing online is ever private, as I tell my students all the time. And 10 children lost their acceptance to Harvard. So this is a really sad story, and it's something that we see time and again. Just recently, there were these kids that were partying spring break in Florida. Maybe you saw pictures of them. And Michael Dell of Dell Computers posted something online that said he would do facial recognition, and any of these kids who tried to apply to his companies would not be hired. So doing something kind of silly and maybe not so smart would impact these kids' digital future. So I believe a little video to teach you more about this follows.
We all have to admit, the internet is pretty cool. It provides a lot of opportunities to learn new things and connect with interesting people. When you use the internet, it's important to remember that every time you text, tweet, post, comment, play a game, blog, or even fill out a form, the internet has a way of remembering you and what you do. All of your online activities add up to make your digital billboard. A collection of all the stuff you've ever done online. It tells the world all about you. And it's up to you to decide what to put on it. Everything you post can potentially be shared, which is awesome. But remember, it can be seen by anyone and everyone. And Google always knows where to find you. So you're gonna want this billboard to make a good impression, because many people will judge you by what they see online. So think twice about the friends you make, about the things you post, and the selfies you upload. Because you want your digital billboard to be just as awesome as you are.
Okay, so this is a really fun lesson that follows that little video, but I asked the kids to pretend that they are college admissions officers, and their job is to give a full athletic scholarship to one of 2 deserving candidates based on their digital billboard. So for this lesson, you know, we have this candidate here, David Downing, and this is the letter he writes to our admissions officers, telling them what a great GPA he has and what a great kid he is and blah, blah, blah. So I don't have the whole lesson on here for you, but it'll give you a taste of what the kids have to look at. So this is David Downing, his Instagram post where he TP'd a house and he put it on his Instagram. And I love doing this lesson with students because, like, one little girl said, she's like, oh, I don't think that's the worst thing to put online. But then again, I wouldn't want to give a scholarship to someone who's dumb enough to post that online. So, you know, we want them to kind of think as they were an adult looking at this stuff. Here's something that we found on Google about our friend David Downing that said that he allegedly hacked into the school's computer to access a test that they were going to get the next day. And then he said he was in the science club, but yet when we look at the science club's Facebook page, we notice that he's been dropped for not attending any club meetings. So there's that. And we have a second candidate here, Sarah Adams, who's going to be an English major, and she runs on our track team and she tutors kids in English. And we take a look at her digital reputation, and our prospective English major has a blog, which is really awesome, but yet a ton of misspelling on her blog page, which my 6th graders love to point out right away. This is a post on tutors.com. We mentioned in her letter that she's a tutor for kids, but yet when we see here, her reviews aren't that great. And so, you know, she doesn't show up on time. They were not thinking she was the best tutor ever. And then she said she was on the school's honor roll, but yet when you look at the honor roll on the school's website, it appears that her name is not on it. So when I do this lesson with the kids, obviously there's a lot more data that they look at, a lot more digital background data. And usually they decide that neither candidate is worthy of their full scholarship. But there's a second part to this lesson, because as I try to teach the kids, not everything you see online is accurate or true. And so, for example, I want them to go back and look at the website and consider, you know, when it was made. Maybe the website hasn't been updated in 2 years, which at some schools happens. I want them to take another look at the article because the name was like slightly different from the candidate they were interviewing, which kind of happens sometimes at high schools, big high schools especially. There will be multiple kids with the same names. And then to take a closer look at the review, because sometimes you don't know who's posting a review. Maybe it's someone who doesn't like Sarah, or maybe it's another tutor who wants to get more work. So again, this internet stuff, especially in relation to your digital reputation, is very complex. You know, there's a lot of things that you post something about yourself and then maybe someone else posts something, it contributes to your reputation and changes everything. And that's really where the next lesson goes. To share or not to share, I really want the students to understand that what they post, you know, they only have so much control over what they post, but they have to remember that when their friends post and tag them, that contributes to their digital billboard as well. And so what can they do about that? Well, the best they can do is be aware of when that happens, but more importantly, to choose their friends and followers wisely. So that's what this next lesson does. And then finally, we finish this unit by having the kids complete their own digital billboard to imagine the kind of things that they would love their billboard to say about themselves. So super important unit. We do it early in the year because it kind of helps set the stage for things to come, which is ethical thinking. We do this sort of in the middle of their sixth grade. We have a bunch of lessons where they actually get to use their ethical thinking skills. One of the things I have my students do is create a code of conduct. I want them to get together in their detective groups and think about the things that they would like to be normal online. These are some of the things my own students have come up with. And I think this is so powerful. It's rather than a teacher telling them like, you know, don't post negative things online, don't have digital drama, don't spread rumors. That would go in one ear and out the other. But when they come up with these norms themselves, generally they live up to them much better than if an adult sets them for them. Something else that an ethical digital citizen needs to know how to do is how to communicate properly online. It's funny because when I was young, I remember getting lessons on how to write an actual letter, but a lot of students don't really get lessons on how to communicate properly online. And there's really some norms that exist and are different from email to texting to different mechanisms that we use. So it's important for kids to learn that. And something we're just adding this year, because it's something I've learned the hard way, is how to communicate on Zoom. So many kids are using Zoom right now. And I know that when I taught my first student lesson on Zoom, okay, kids had funny backgrounds, they were doing things, they were eating, they were texting. You know, they didn't understand like the norms or how to be a proper digital citizen on Zoom. So these are some of the things that we're going to teach them going into next year, because chances are these kids are going to be on all kinds of virtual communication tools in their future. And there's just some norms that you want to live by. And one of the things that I told my students is, you know, it's okay when it's just us, but somebody might take a screenshot of this and share it elsewhere. We see it happening a lot. So you want to be on your best digital behavior, even when you use visual tools like this. All right. So this leads us into a very important chapter. I just finished this unit with my own students, cyberbullying and digital drama. I had to figure out how to teach this online, which was a bit of a trick. Super important lessons. I think that we started a little differently than other people, where we really do a deep dive into empathy and what it means to be empathetic of people behind a screen. We want kids to understand behind every online interaction is a real human with real feelings. So I have them draw avatars, you know, something that they want people to see about them online, turn it over and write the things they might be hiding about themselves online. And the way we do it is I collect all these cards and then I distribute them between 2 different classes, and I have kids just read the back. And it's funny to me because these words pop up a lot on the back of the card: sadness, loneliness, not feeling good enough, worried, embarrassed. That's stuff that kids hide from each other online. And I think it's important for them to be reminded of that, because, you know, you guys have heard, you know, on Facebook, people always show their best face forward. And so people think other people's lives are always so perfect. And even for children, they need to be reminded that not what they see on the screen is not really the whole story. So that's how we start this unit before we get into the nitty gritty of what cyberbullying is. Cyberbullying is really identifiable by 4 distinct characteristics. It's online, it's intentional, it's repeated and harmful. A little bit different from digital drama, which is misunderstandings or hurtful comments shared on digital devices. We spend a lot of time talking about this because a lot of the things that kids experience online is actually digital drama. It often gets confused for cyberbullying, and it's really important to have a distinction and to know what to do when you see both. little video. So I'll show this to you and then we'll talk.
It's fun to connect with friends online, while playing games, texting, using social media, and more. But screens sometimes make it easy for people to say or do things they wouldn't say or do in real life, including things that are mean and cruel. When cruelty is online, intentional, repeated, and harmful, it's called cyberbullying. And to be the target of cyberbullying can be devastating. But the good news is, when bullying happens online, lots of people see it. If you happen to be one of those people, you can help put an end to it by being an upstander or someone who stands up to cruelty. There are 3 easy ways to be an upstander. Number 1, you can ask the bully to stop. This takes courage. And it's also important to remember that behind every cruel deed is a real person who may be in need of empathy too. Number 2, you could give comfort to the target. A kind word might be just the thing they need to turn their world around. Number 3, you can and should take a screenshot of any cyberbullying you see and show it to a trusted adult. This is how we can put a stop to cyberbullying. Now, wouldn't that be upstanding?
So I think that's a super important lesson because there was some data that showed that in their lifetime, something like 85% of children will see or be the target of cyberbullying, but very few of them will know what to do. And this idea of being an upstander is such a powerful tool because if you just give kids tools on how to stand up to a bully, chances are they'll be more inclined to do it. But more importantly, when you give kids these tools as a class, a group, not just one kid will stand up, but a bunch of kids will stand up to the cyberbully. And that really, really helps. So being an upstander is really an important skill to empower kids with. And so we hit this lesson pretty hard. One of the things that we do is we give kids a story, a typical story that might happen in 6th grade. And their job is to finish the story by adding an upstander to it. And they have to finish it by drawing a cartoon strip. So I get cartoon strips like this. This is tiny, tiny, but literally it takes me days to read them all. But it's so cute because the kids really think it through in different ways an upstander could respond to a typical scenario. So again, the whole purpose of this is we want kids to do these things offline first so that they have these skills that they can apply when they go online. And then finally, you know, super important, tell kids what to do if they're cyberbullied or they see someone else being cyberbullied. Take stock, don't respond right away, record, take a picture of the evidence and save it in case you have to give it to a social media network later. Block, easy to unfriend, unfollow, just simply leave the site, never respond to a bully. 3, talk to all parties involved in real life, talk to a trusted adult. So, you know, 3 simple things to tell your kids to know what to do should they ever be the victim or target of cyberbullying. And then finally, this last year, we have gotten a lot of word out that hate speech is on the rise. Specifically right now during coronavirus, there's been a lot of hate speech directed towards Asians, Chinese, because of the coronavirus. So we really need to give kids tools on how to recognize hate speech, which is speech targeted at a group because of race, gender, identification. And so we play a little Mad Libs with this and give them different things that they can do if and when they encounter hate speech online. And then our final unit is on identity and privacy. And this is a really important one to do at the end of the 6th grade year or 5th grade year, because you know, you have to remember kids at this time are really excited about showing who they are online and their identities are developing, and that develops with their interaction with their peers. But yet they're sharing themselves in a place that's very public, very permanent. And so we want them to take a step back and think about what they post online and how much information they're giving away. So we start this by taking a look at the selfie. So again, because we try to have a social historical bent on cyber civics, we say, look at, who do you think posted the first selfie? And the kids will say, oh, Katy Perry, somebody like that. And actually, when you think about it, all of our beautiful self-portrait artists were actually posting selfies. So these are their self-portraits, and when you look at them, there's so much information that you're getting about them by this simple image. And so we actually spend the whole class period looking at different images that we've collected of some of the famous artists and their self-portraits, project them on the wall, and have the kids talk about the information that they're getting from each of these. And Warhol, for example, looks very powerful with his heads up. Frida Kahlo obviously is thinking about Diego because he's on her forehead. So we talk about that, and then I have the kids draw their own selfies. And then we show these in the classroom, and they talk about what information they're giving away through the selfies that they draw or they actually post online. So hand in hand with the selfie is actually their bios. When kids write bios, that's also giving away a lot of information about themselves. I'm going to give you an example. So a lot of kids, when they open an Instagram account, they will make it private, but even when they're private on Instagram, their picture and their bio will always be public. And for a child who's young, that's super important, because if they were to be Googled, that's going to pop up. It's part of their digital reputation. So I don't know how often you go through Instagram, but I've seen a lot of kids post really inappropriate pictures and bios. So this is something we work on in the curriculum. And the way we do it is we have kids get each other's name in the classroom, and their job is to write a bio for their peer, 6 words they're limited to, and then they have to read the bio in front of the class, and the class has to guess who the peer is. And we've gotten some beautiful bios out of this. Shy but kind, small but mighty. I can't is not an option. Life can be an amazing ride. Inspires others with just a smile. And when you read that to a classroom, the kids automatically know who you're talking about. So sometimes these type of bios have actually made it onto their actual Instagram accounts. And then we end the year with a fun activity where we put a big line on the floor, A-OK at one end, no way at the other end. And we read a bunch of scenarios that encapsulate what they've learned through the year, and they have to stand on the place on the line that shows what they think the answer should be. And then it leads to a great, really deep classroom discussion about the topic. And it kind of reviews everything they've done during the school year. So that was a quick review of how we approach digital citizenship. I hope that you can see that we try to do it in a way that's really respectful of where the kids are developmentally. And more importantly, lets them work it out themselves. We're not trying to give them all the answers. We're trying to pose questions so that they can come up with the answers with their peer group and take those norms into their digital world, which is so important with kids. And as you can see, like, this is really the foundation. I believe that all digital literacy should start with digital citizenship. It's very basic. And once you do that, you know, it's like building the cake. You have the cake with no icing on it. And the really fun part is when you get to level 2 and you teach them how to use it as a really powerful research tool. And then level 3, where you start learning to use critical thinking skills to analyze media messages, but more important, to become a wonderful participant in this world and to make your own media messages that are super powerful, positive, and reflect well on your digital reputation. So that's a journey we take kids on through this 3-year process. You can learn more at the website, cybercivics.com. We're pretty excited because we just had the curriculum aligned with different standards and found that we met the English language arts standards, the Common Core, ISTE's tech standards, and really exciting, we did really well matching CASEL's SEL standards, social and emotional learning standards. So that was really exciting for us as well. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we have the website for parents. It's called cyberwise.org, full of free information for you. Please take advantage of it. We also send out a newsletter every 2 weeks with kind of the latest research and tips for parents. It's all free, so help yourself. Both sites, we have free lessons as well. And then there's my book available on Amazon or where books are sold. As I mentioned earlier, there are some activities from CyberCivics at the end of each chapter that you're welcome to do with your students or family. And then there's also a free discussion guide that you can download on either of those websites that I just showed you. We're very active on social media, so follow us on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. We try to post like useful tips every single day, so feel free to follow us on whatever your poison is. And then finally, the reason we do this is we want kids to learn how to use the very best internet filter in the world, and that's the one they carry around up here. So if we can teach them how to use it well, we can sit back and rest a lot easier that they're going to be taking care of each other and themselves when they go online. So there you have it. That's digital citizenship. Thank you for your nice comments. I'm going to switch back to our chat group, or actually I'm going to leave the chat open here. But I would love to hear your questions, or Hillary, if you have any questions that you'd like me to address at this time, I'm happy to do it.
Great, thank you. We did have this webinar listed as 1 to 2:30, but that is just for this specific reason. If anyone had any questions to ask, please feel free to do that now. If not, then I think we're wrapped up otherwise. So if you did have somewhere else you needed to be, then that's okay to exit now as well, I believe. But don't miss us next week, next Thursday. Please register for the second one. We're super excited to get to have 2 of these.
Yeah, and I did want to say, Hillary, that I'm going to send you follow-up materials that you're free to share with everybody.
Great.
And I do want to say that I hope people come next week because, as I mentioned earlier, people stop at this stuff, which is basically online safety. And it's such a detriment to kids because it's the other stuff they really need. They really need to take it to the next step and have these tools. I mean,
Yes.
We're dealing with a huge misinformation problem online right now, and adults never got the skills to be able to tell truth from false. And I think this is our opportunity for us to know how to do that and to share that with our children. So that's what we'll be talking about next week.
Great. We have a huge population of grandparents raising their grandchildren here as well. So having this information for them would be a great asset to have.
Good.
Any questions? Anybody?
I'm just going to scroll up and see if I missed anything as I was talking. I think I addressed just about all of them, right? Thank you for sharing. If teacher resources, that's a good question, 3 through 6. I do know of something. So Google has something called Be Internet Awesome, and I've taken a look at it, and it's pretty good because it's kind of like how we do it too, where it's a lot of activities where kids start doing things offline first so that they hone those skills before they go online. They're available, I believe, if you were to Google Be Internet Awesome, really good resources. So I urge you to check that out. And will you be sending a link for next week? We'll be sending that out, right, Hillary?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I believe the link, I'm not sure if it's up yet or not. It'll also be up on our Facebook page.
Okay. Yeah. And we'll share it on our Facebook page as well and send out another newsletter. You're welcome.
I'm trying to find the website. I think the Internet Crimes Against Children site has a Garfield themed group of lessons.
Yes.
For younger kids.
Yeah, I have some of their workbooks here and they're really good. So.
Oh, do you?
Yes. Okay. It's called, if you were to Google Garfield, because that's online safety, you'll find your way to those lessons as well. And they're really good. Yeah. So the thing is with those younger kids, I mean, I used to just say like, keep them offline as much as you can, but we're in this place right now where kids have to be online to do their schoolwork. And my heart goes out to parents with those younger kids because they were thrown on so fast without the ramp up to learn how to use it safely and wisely. So it really is incumbent, unfortunately, on parents right now to try to work with those kids and know what they're doing online and trying to get them up to speed. So it's a tough time we're going through.
Becky, our marketing person, just said it's up on the website and Facebook already for next week. So should be able to register now. And on that comment, my daughter she just finished 4th grade and she's already she doesn't ask for toys. She doesn't want to watch television. She has no interest other than technology, and it terrifies me. But it seems like it's just so early for all of that.
There's just
3 to 6th grade is a good time.
Yeah, it's young, but it's the world we're in now, and so we just have to have them with the tools to do things. So there's a Q&A here. Let me just open this. Okay. Yeah, I think we're up to speed here. Okay. Lots of stuff happening.
I'll give one final call out if anyone has any questions.
And Hillary, did you record this? Will you be able to share
Yes, I did record this and we'll have this up and available as soon as I figure out how to do that. I think we're good. Thank you everybody for attending today, and I hope to see you again next week.
And thank you for having me.
Thank you, Diana. I so appreciate you. This was wonderful. I'm so excited about this program.
Next year, hopefully.
Yes, definitely. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.